So the album's been out for almost 6 months now.
Almost as long as I have.
That's right.
No, I'm
you got to tell us the story about the people you've met.
I ran into a couple of other players just in Nashville who have just without prompting mentioned, "Oh, I heard the Emerald City Council record. That's really cool." That just like apparently it exists in the wild and musicians like it.
I think he's telling you that he's upgraded from being your father's son to being drummer of Emerald City Council.
Well, I mean,
You're no longer David Hungate's kid. You are drummer for Emerald City Council.
That's right.
Yeah,
I could only hope.
That took a lot to get you away from.
Well, I had to fight to get my name into the liner notes because it was just going to be David Hungate's kid.
See, the comedy. The comedy is strong today, isn't it?
Yes. Well, so what's your favorite track from the...
I didn't realize this was going to be the Put Me On the
I know,
Spot
right?
show. Okay.
Do we know the names of the songs?
Just say this one. Well, my favorite track is Side 1.
I love that song. Well, it's a prog band. That could be a song, though.
That could be accurate.
You know?
Yes.
Like Side 3 song.
Well, I mean, they are like unto my children. I love all of them. Let's see. I think I'm probably I think my drumming is probably the best, or I like it the most on No Thanks to You, or
right?
Possibly.
No Thanks to
You.
It's
a solid track, right?
Dude,
it's really good. Yeah.
Am I crazy?
Not like all this like
proggy
amateur
stuff.
wacko drumness going on the other ones.
Oh, sorry. I took your cheat sheet away.
I really like that. Oh man, that might be my favorite.
No Thanks to You is one that has almost the most amount of plays on the whole record. You can translate that into English later. I listen to that song a lot.
Oh, really?
Still, No Thanks to You is one of my favorites. Yeah. You know why? It reminds me of like the 80s Crimson era. For some reason, I know it doesn't sound anything like it, but there's something in there that's triggering Discipline. King Crimson Discipline era.
I finally figured out why everybody keeps saying that's the one that sounds like Toto, where it's that eighth note, that ding ding. Because I was baffled by that, which is funny because that was a lot of them. I didn't have a particular drummer in my head playing them, but that was one of the ones where I did. But the drummer I had in my head on that was Stuart Copeland. It's the broken up groove with the hat accents, right? With the just putting or with like the kick just being at the top, doom. The like column response between the kick and the hat aspect of it was, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I can see that.
You sounded like Uncle Jeff.
Yeah,
you knew Jeff Porcaro.
I mean,
you were a baby.
I was a baby. Yeah, sadly, I never really got to actually know him. The only time I met him was when I was a baby. Mm-hmm. He was almost more like a religious figure in my house from when I started playing drums. Right. My dad was like, "Here's everything Jeff Porcaro ever played on.
Make sure those candles don't light up the picture." Right.
No. Now, he was one of two guys my dad was like that with. It was Jeff Porcaro and Larry London were his two favorite drummers. And Larry was like an uncle. Him I knew very well. Actually, the first time I sat on a kit was like on Larry's knee when I was like 2 or something like that.
Wow, it's amazing. And they died within like 3 days of each other.
It was the same year. It was
but it was within the same week or something.
Yeah,
it was 91.
92,
was it?
90,
Okay.
It was 92. But
it was summer 92 because I was on break from college. I was on summer break, and my friend told me about it. And then that same week, Larry London.
Yeah, that was a really hard time.
Now to talk about something pleasant. I'm so sorry to bring the house down in a bad way.
Well, it's interesting that everyone has kind of looked at that one and said, "Oh, that's their Toto song," because obviously with your connection to your dad being in there. One of the really bizarre things to me is that no one is really picking up on the fact. When I'm writing this, I have a very heavy Rush influence. You and Jeremy, I think, have a very heavy Rush influence.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
And no one, not a single reviewer, has said, "Oh, this reminds me of anything of Rush." And I was talking
because all my toms are tuned way too low.
Well, that could be it. Well, there's that.
Honestly, that is my note for the next time we cut a record. I'm like, I need to get those toms up a little higher. I'd get them in more in the prog zone. But sorry, anyway, this isn't drum notes, or maybe it is.
Right.
Well, you're here, so why not?
Yeah.
Guys,
we always talk about saxophone.
This is how I'm going to improve on the next record.
Well, the other thing is that when Rowley of Advent Horizon, when he first heard our album, he said, "Oh yeah, I definitely hear the Kansas influence, hear that," and he's a huge Rush fan, and I was kind of like, "You don't really hear the Rush influence?" and he said that because he thought it was because Jake's voice was so different than Geddy's that he just it didn't take him to that place. I think if I would have sang everything rather than Jake sing everything, I think people would have went, "My God, that's such a heavy."
So we can completely rip off a famous band as long as the singer doesn't sound like that band.
There you go. That's perfect.
And also,
perfect.
and also just that the songs aren't kind of starting from the rhythm section. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way, like it's like they all groove, but they're. I mean, Rush it's a very comes from a very rhythm section first place kind of musically where like there's a certain feel that I don't know. There are like moments where I can hear it in there, and there are like certain fills where I can hear it in there. But anytime it goes to the that's almost like the.
You did that really well.
Feels like the.
Yeah, next time he doesn't have to play it.
Quintessential.
Yeah, see, I can't do it.
Right.
So that's why he's the professional drummer, and I'm just the guy who runs this stuff.
Right. Well, I definitely, all of these songs started melodically first, and then everything else came later. So I definitely think that, as far as just the approach goes, it's very different. When I was writing it, there was some apprehension of, man, I hope we pull this off, and but then
you shouldn't
it just
have been
all
able
sort of
to.
fell out.
Right. I mean, not like written laws against it, but you shouldn't have been able to do what you did.
And especially just the way that we did it, because, I wrote it out, mapped it out in Pro Tools, and then Seth came over and did some of the rhythm guitar tracks. Calvin Barnes came over and did the acoustic guitar tracks, and then sent it to you.
You did it later?
Yeah, that was the only one where anybody put anything on there before drums.
No, wait, you played the nothing?
Well, I mean, before anybody but Brent put anything on there other than drums.
How the hell do you know what you're playing to?
I didn't.
Oh!
Yeah.
No, it's funny.
You
like,
never know.
I'm super proud of how it came out, but I really do hope we get to play it live because I've got so many notes of, now I know what I want to play there.
So we're going to get a really
like.
amazing live version of this.
Honestly, no, the drums are going to be so much better whenever we do it again. Whenever we play out.
Yeah.
Do a live version.
Well, we want to.
Okay.
We definitely, that's definitely something we're working
It's
on.
funny. It's like, I get what's happening in this section now. Where, I was flying pretty blind.
I didn't know how this was recorded. That's amazing.
Well, with Brutal Camouflage, we had acoustic guitar and scratch vocal, and that was it. Philip Moore, our friend Philip
There's a little bit more on the final track than that.
Yeah, there's a little more than that. Yeah, but it was just acoustic guitar and scratch vocal and maybe a couple of sax parts, and that was about it. We did have some of the rhythm guitar tracks, just the dig it out, just that part, and the chorus part of Noisy Talking. And there was a lot of the guitar parts to No Thanks to You, but there wasn't much except it was only piano.
No Thanks to You definitely by far had the most structure going in, because that was one that you had cut before.
Yeah, because
I had that as a reference point. Yeah, like that was exponentially more structure in place before.
Right. Yeah. Now Ice Thinning, I will tell you, was pretty much just me banging on a piano. I had a couple of little MIDI guitar things. I mean, he had almost nothing on that one.
But I mean, for the most part, even with what was on there, though, I was mostly playing to whole notes, and I was mostly playing to melody and whole notes. On most of the songs on that record.
Me singing it,
And on platforms, I didn't have those guitars in my mix when I tracked it anyway.
Did you not?
No, because it was distracting, and I wasn't sure if they were keepers or not. So I didn't have those when I tracked that either.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Have you ever gone in these videos on how you recorded this?
Not really.
Pretty much at home. So they recorded this stuff in their individual studios. Yeah. You went to Shane's garage.
Yeah, exactly. So Shane Keister. If you don't know him, go to like All Music and look up his credits. He's played keys on a gajillion.
He's a session player here in Nashville. We all know him. He's phenomenal.
But he has a great studio at his place, and we kind of share it. I've got a kit set up there, and we kind of share a drum room. And I cut the bulk of the tracks out there, with the exception of Platforms of Illusion and Realize 3 was that and Platforms and Realize 3 were cut at Stuffy Room Studios, which is run by C.S. Brown. If any of you know the band Ghost Circus, it's a pretty cool prog stuff. Chris is an excellent prog guitar player and writer. And anyway, I did Platforms and Realized 3 out at his place, and then the rest were at Shane's
And they
garage.
matched. They were great. You would never know. You know.
Yeah.
It was great.
Different kit, different room, different which thanks
Well,
to you also for like
thanks
lining
to
everything up.
I'm quoting your own record back to you. Yeah, it was great. But they all recorded at different places, not in the same room. Have you met the members of the band? Oh, should we go into that? No.
Sure.
Have you met your guitarist?
No.
Okay. Have you met your singer live in real person?
No.
IRL?
No, the only folks I've met IRL are Brent and Jeremy Nichols, the bass player.
OMG.
Yeah, I know, right? CIA TTFN.
LMNOPFO.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's great. So the first time it kind of came together was we were mixing it, and I was getting all these different sources and put it together like a puzzle, and there it was. And I didn't know that you weren't listening to anything while you cut the drums.
I was
I'm a little in shock.
And it was
you rewind
rhythmically
it, you'll see
into.
my
So
shock
this
face.
is I
Right.
you kids don't know how hard we had it back in my day. But so my only rhythmic reference mostly was the melody line, vocal or saxophone.
Right.
And then just about everything else happening was like downbeat on one whole notes for a lot of the. So it's like I had to figure out. I was basically guessing a groove based on the melody on just about every one.
Now,
That's a big decision to make.
Well, we did have a few conversations. We would usually touch base, and I would say, I want something like this.
That's a big decision to make. I mean, a kick pattern can drastically change the feel of something.
Yeah.
But there were a few like some of the more interesting things too, which I'm glad it came for you because like there are a few things that I never would have happened to think of on my own. Or I'm glad you brought it up, like a noisy talking and. That and a Mortal Game, where they both have that kind of syncopated tom groove thing going on in the verses in the beginning.
Was that from?
That came from Brent. That was Brent saying, "Hey, so I want kind of." He pretty much almost like sang it to them, but like that boom boom
right.
Like that came from Brent. That never would have spontaneously occurred to me.
Yeah.
That's such a hook of the song.
That was an.
And
that was definitely.
That seems like a spark of an idea that caused the song.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, because which also fits into the kind of there's a very symphonic orchestral nature to the material that the way you wrote it, and
that didn't exist when you recorded.
But existed in his head though, and it makes a lot of sense where he had some of those particular the grooves that weren't just kick snare hat grooves were things that he had in his head because it was like writing an orchestral piece. So the stuff like that did come from Brent talking it through with me on the ones that are like that, where it's not kind of a standard groove, where it makes sense that would be part of the composition.
Isn't that like the first song I mixed?
That was the first one I played. Yeah.
Was it?
That was brutal camouflage.
Okay.
Wait, didn't I do Noisy Talking first?
Anyway, in the first three...
Wasn't that the first one I played?
Noisy Talking was the first one we did.
Yeah.
Of everything.
So I'm going to use my cheat sheet again.
Yeah.
No Thanks to You and Noisy Talking were two of the first three, right?
First four.
First
four we did was Brutal Camouflage, Mortal Game.
I think those two...
Noisy Talking and No Thanks to You.
Yeah,
those were the first four.
Yeah, I'm going to look at this again. Sorry. Noisy Talking and No Thanks to You, I hear those two as brothers. They're very similar, and those are the two of the first ones that I listened to, and they had that. I'm gonna just spot a reference. King Crimson had a Thrack album.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Dinosaur.
Yeah,
had that same kind of.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't think of that at the time.
Right, it's a really great drum pattern, and that's what caught me. Right, and then that put me in the headspace of
Noisy
King
Talking
Crimson.
is probably my other favorite.
Yeah.
Although it's the one where I have. There's a moment that's kind of like my greatest source of shame, but in a weird way tied to a source of pride.
Don't mention Kenny G again. I don't want to know fights.
No. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna own it before, if this is popular enough to ever have people talk about it on message boards. I'm gonna get out ahead of them. Big drum break, right? Breakdown verse. Big drum break. There's a kick hit in the middle of that. That's just straight up like half a beat early in that big fill that comes back in, and part of me is just always agonizing over why didn't I do one more take? Why didn't I try and punch that? But the other part of me is like, haha, that's evidence that the drums aren't timing corrected.
I didn't do it.
So,
well,
that's the yin and yang of my relationship to that.
Well, Neil Morris told me one time.
Name dropper.
Yeah. Well, he did tell me.
Okay.
So, okay.
Hi, Neil.
So anyway, he did say one time, and he did say someone else told him this. Maybe he was talking about Rich Mauser that mixes a lot of his stuff, but he said the album has to haunt you. There has to be something in there that you're always going to go, oh, I should have fixed that. I should have done this. You know, there's always going to be something.
It's just that everything stops. Everything stops. This big look at me, and just like right in the middle of it, there's just a little hiccup on the kick. I'm just like,
sorry,
I failed. No, I'm sorry. It was me.
And I have never once ever
I'm going
listened
to
that.
Go back and listen to that. I'm usually good about fixing stuff. I'm sorry.
Well, I've never once thought to myself, boy, what was Noah doing there?
You're going, like,
wow, that's amazing.
Amateur hour.
That was our little advertisement for gummies.
Well,
I want the kids at home to feel like they nailed it.
Well, if I were to talk about all of the little mistakes that I made on the album, we would be making a 5-hour video. So
I didn't make any, so you can take my time.
That's right.
I'm joking. That was a joke.
I will say though, I do kind of take a little bit with like a lot of musicians I've talked about like cutting. I feel like I'm patting myself on the back, so I don't want to be too. Although I'm simultaneously talking about making mistakes, so it's okay. It's not that egotistical.
It's the yin yang, light dark. It's good.
Various like music people I'll like talk about the album with. I'll like mention cutting it, and they'll make some sort of reference to. Okay, so everything's like edited and cut down to grid perfect everywhere. So I was like, no, we didn't do any timing edits on the drums that I know of. Don't correct me.
I didn't. I don't do that. I didn't. And those are your recordings too, by the way. I didn't. There's one snare. There's a sample on your snare, but it's just here's your snare drum and the samples under here.
So it's not even a replacement. It's a supplement. Okay.
Supplement.
Yeah.
No drum replacements whatsoever. There's just maybe 30% snare supplement. And the snare sample I'm using has a pedigree. It was my dear friend Bob St. John. There's this great album called Extreme's third record, which I love. I love it.
I remember that album.
Brilliant record, honestly. I know. Extreme. Go listen to Extreme 3. The third side is just beautiful. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Bob gave me the snare sample that he used on that. So that's underneath your drum.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
great.
You can hear it. And then that came from I'm not going to remember his name on camera because I have like a bashful bladder syndrome in front of cameras. But anyway, it came from another engineer that was used. It was used on like Metallica records and stuff. So anyway, he made it. Oh, Wagner, Michael Wagner created it. So there you go. Pedigree on the snare sample that you can barely hear.
Yeah.
That we just took 3 minutes.
Give a little extra beef on it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, for the most part, when I would send Noah the files, we would usually have a conversation, and I would kind of say, I want this, I want that. There were some places that, there were a few places here and there where I was kind of like, listen to the melody, use your best judgment. For the most part, I had in mind that I want something like this, want something like that. And throughout, I would ask him to make little minor changes here and there on each one of the tracks after, he would send me a rehearsal video or send me some takes, and I'd say, can you change this, change that? And he would do it. The only one that we kind of miscommunicated on was Mortal Game. And when you sent me a rehearsal video of that one, I was like, oh, we're way off.
You're like, that's not even the song.
That's not even close.
Which again, the amount of I can't express enough how much I'm like it's space with chords in it.
Well, this whole note didn't tell you what to play.
That was a very that one was a very bare bones.
Man, I love how that one turned out too.
And that one's really interesting too because but as far as that goes, what I remember the conversation we had was that I was like, no, I want something more like completely different feel, completely different kind of song, but I pointed him to UK's Rendezvous 602, and I said, drum wise, I want something kind of like that, and he was like, oh, and then he was taking me later, going, thanks for introducing me to the song,
That's cool.
and
wait,
so
you didn't know that? I'm shaming him now. This is what we do. I'm not.
You know what? I've got a fun, weird accident of happenstance that yielded something great. As far as the pattern goes, I listened to that. As far as like tonality, this is kind of a running thing with all the songs, but especially this one because it's kind of the most ballady of them. every song felt way, way, way less heavy than the final product actually is.
I imagine.
Because everything I was getting was like,
right.
You know, it was just, it was all very spacey and very, and so my kind of concept of what we were doing was tonally somewhat different, and especially on Mortal Game, to the point where, you know, for the first half of the song, there's kind of like some kind of light syncopated tom stuff, almost like Peter Gabriel Blood of Eden, you know, you know, just like real, yeah, spacey syncopated tom stuff. That's a good old SSTS. But you know, one half, 2/3 the way through the song, it's a more traditional groove kicks in. We start hitting the snare for the first time, and I was so much in a this is a light and airy song headspace. The way I approached it from there.
Which song are you talking about?
Mortal Game.
Okay.
Mortal Game. I'm hitting like just velocity way lighter than I normally hit, way lighter than I'm hitting on any of the other songs. And what I've got, the kind of drum sound in my head is, I kept thinking King Crimson Starless or something like that. Like just very, and I had a snare, I had a thin, deadened, I was going for like just 70s, you know, just that kind of like super, almost like cardboardy kind of
Steely
like
Danny, Steve Gaddy.
Yeah. And I'm normally you know, music bands.
I love these guys. They know the musical reference.
But like normally I'm a like 2 and 4 is always a rim shot guy. Like that that's that Jeff Porcaro influence too. It's just that it's 2 or 4
Uncle
it's
Jeff.
crack. Yeah. But I was doing just tip of the stick, middle of the head. Just you know, bat just going for that, just barely
Sounds
there.
kinky.
Barely, exactly. Yeah,
Tip
yeah.
of the stick, middle of the head.
Not safe for work. But yeah, and so like light, dead snare, and so barely touching it, just playing this super quiet track. And again, I'm hearing that kind of tonality in my head. I'm hearing that very much like 70s, almost kind of lo-fi kind of ballad. And then it gets mixed, and I get it back. And no, but it was awesome.
Oh, good.
It was awesome because like it wasn't the thing in my head, but it was amazing, and it was amazing in a way that it wouldn't have been if I'd been trying to play like that.
Oh, cool.
Because hitting a drum really hard yields a different sound than hitting a drum lightly and gaining it up.
Yeah,
and like that lightly and gained up sound is rad. Like so, like I love it. I'm like that was one of the ones that the one reviewer who had the YouTube video where he was like, this is gonna be look out, this is gonna be your favorite snare sound this year in Prague, and it was that snare, that song.
You gotta send me that. I knew that.
Like I'm like just every time I hit it, but in the track it's pa, and it's beautiful, and it's again
compressor.
It's a sound that we would have not have gotten if I'd just been hitting it, like. But that's my long happy accident story.
Yeah. Cool. I want to give a shout out to Scott from the Prague Corner.
Scott, thank you. I'm sorry I forgot your name. I love that review. Thank you.
He's been a huge supporter of it. He mentioned us, so he did our YouTube review, but he mentioned us on like 3 other videos prior to that. And every time that he would mention us, I'd get like 2 or 3 more orders suddenly.
Oh, that's awesome.
And people tell me, hey, I just found out about you. So thank you, Scott. You're awesome.
I got to say, this is my studio. I've been here 20 years. And I see projects leave. When they leave the studio, they go out and they usually have as much budget for PR as they do recording. That's kind of common now.
Yeah.
And I don't really see much happening. You know, they'll get their streams and we don't see it again. When you released yours, kablam! I mean, my whole social media feed was full of your album. And it was results I don't see a lot of. Yeah. So when it happened, I was like, "Holy crap! This is kind of exploding."
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Amazing.
But the weird thing has been, I brought that up because we're talking about Mortal Game. So every review we've had tons of reviews in the U.S., U.K., Germany. We just got one from the Netherlands, a couple from France. Everyone, of course, has acknowledged Platform's Illusion as being like the centerpiece of the album. But almost every one of them, Mortal Game, either they were like, yeah, Mortal Game is kind of
their favorite,
or they're like, this one is magnificent. There's no in between. It's good. Like, which makes me wonder sometimes, because I don't know, personally, I don't know how
that one's
you
also
can
come
hear,
out as one of my favorites now too.
I don't know
Actually,
how you can
I
hear,
love the way that turned out.
I don't know how you can hear Jake's vocals at the end, and he just killed it. He killed that vocal track. Casey from Flying Colors, Casey McPherson, and I listened to that and went, and Casey just turned around and said, well, of course this is through Zoom, but he said, you got to be happy with a vocal track like that. That's amazing. And Jake killed it. And
when he really gets going and like digs into that upper register stuff.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. And so when
you boys have a nice singer in your orchestra,
right? When you see it, when I see a review that says, "Oh, Mortal Game's not that great," I want to go, "Did you listen to the end?" You know, and I don't know. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But it's amazing to me that they could listen to Jake just absolutely own that ending and go, eh.
Well, man, I love a good slow burn, like that kind of the Hey Jude template of it's this until it's this, and it just I love that.
Yeah, because I love how it came together. You know, with I'm doing this little soprano sax solo. I'm trying to give a little bit of that sort of even though I'm playing on soprano sax, I'm trying to give that Eddie Jobson in the light of day kind of thing going. And then the mellotron kicks in and Brandon's guitar comes in and it just is a total shift, and I just love how that come together. But Jake said, "Hey, I just really want to do something on this ending. Can I just kind of go crazy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man."
Who's gonna tell somebody that capable?
Yeah, right.
No,
right.
Of course,
right.
Yeah. Do your thing, buddy.
Exactly, and so that it's magnificent what he did on the end of that.
Let's talk about your vocal.
Oh, what about my vocal?
I don't know. Let's talk about it. What's there to talk about? Were you nervous?
By the way, when I was cutting them, they were all his vocals.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Ooh, that should be the deluxe version.
Oh no!
I was gonna say that's the exactly. Release all the tracks with the Brent. I've still got all those somewhere.
Okay,
CD version of this.
That's how you will get fired from the band.
or get some good black guy.
Hey man, let's bootleg them.
There you go. Yeah. No, I would prefer because they were never. Every time I did one of those, it was just like, okay, I'm trying to hurry up and get this done. So, trying to hurry up and get the track to Noah or Seth's coming over to do a guitar track on it or whatever. So I got to get something down. And every time I always promise myself, okay, next time I'm going to spend a little time practicing, and really have it worked out. And then, and it never happened. And so those were all just throw them in there and hope that they're okay.
But your vocals are great. The ones on, your lead.
Well, the little
yeah.
Well, I worked on those.
Yeah.
I practiced those more than the scratch vocals were not practiced. They were like, I'm writing the song.
I never had the pleasure.
Not much pleasure for all of you guys. I mean, if you got a lick that you think's cool or you got an idea for a song, I mean, let's talk about it. It
would be amazing to get if we can get a situation where we can get the band in the same place at the same time to kind of like pre-recording, get in a room and just try playing some things and see what it coalesces into,
right.
and then go in being like, okay, yeah, this is the groove.
Yeah.
It's definitely like, I'm very proud of this record, but I definitely on all over the place I hear so many things where I'm like, oh, I know what the song sounds like now, and there are just like little adjustments where I'm like, oh, this is what I would do here. This is what I would do here. Like that. And
just why you need a live version.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I keep pushing for it, but you really need a live version.
Yeah. Well, to do that, we'll have to perform.
that was the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
I see why most people form bands with people who live in the same state now.
I know, right? Well,
damn Zoomers.
That's always been the challenge for me. I mean, living in Arkansas, the challenge has always been that finding musicians, I can either find musicians who have the ability to do what I want to do,
or the availability.
Wow, did you just think of that?
I did.
Were you going for that?
Well, I wasn't going for exactly that, but yeah.
That was like a t-shirt.
Exactly. Teamwork. Yeah, either you find people with the talent but not the time, or the time and not the talent, one or the other. And that's always the hard part. And by actually working collaboratively over a large distance, we were able to get stuff done. But then the challenge of that is that we can't just say, hey, everybody show up on Wednesday night, we're going to rehearse, and so we don't really have that as something we can do. That's going to be more of an undertaking. So we may just have to.
We're only like one invention away from this happening.
We just need one more year.
Star Trek people, right? Don't they have something to help?
We just need one more global pandemic with a year-long quarantine to give everybody that free time, and then
I got a chemistry set at home. I'm working on it.
And then we can all like quarantine here in the Rukkus Room.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Let's just record,
and we'll be like 5 albums done. It's like I don't know if you know the band Teramaze. I love the band Teramaze. During the pandemic, man, they were cranking out album. They're an Australian band. They were just cranking out album after album after album. Just like,
that's amazing.
You know, what else you got to do, right?
Yeah.
So
we're all starved for entertainment. I bet it worked out well. We could camp out here, just get Jimmy John's. Get on a schedule of Jimmy John's. Deliver 3 times a day, and we're good.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'd be up for it.